Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford came out and said it's impossible for Florida State to keep the status quo, essentially, in terms of the revenue disparity when it comes to media rights for the ACC and where Florida State's at right now. And it's a very fair case to be made. Let's break that down just a little bit. Florida State currently brings in right around $42 million annually. Compare that to other conferences in the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big Ten brings in $80 million a year per team, and the SEC brings in right around $72 million a year per team. Florida State is right around $30 million behind the SEC. Florida State generates 15% of the revenue for the ACC through their media contracts. Now, unfortunately, Florida State only gets about 7% of the distribution. Florida State represents 70% more viewers than the average, or rather than the typical, quote unquote, ACC school. What are we trying to tell you here? Florida State is not earning as much as some of their national counterparts. You look at the ACC, Florida State is doing more than pulling their weight. They are bringing in the majority of the ingredients, maybe not majority. They are bringing in a very healthy amount of the ingredients and not able to reap the same amount of the pizza as some of the other national powers in college football or in college athletics in general. Widen the scope a little bit. That's frustrating. Now, the TV contract for ESPN and ABC with the ACC expires in 2036. The buyout would be big, all right? The figure itself, I've seen different numbers out there, so we'll just generalize and say it would be a big buyout, okay? It would take a fair chunk of change to get Florida State out of the ACC early. Now, would they do it? I think there's some smoke there, and I believe based on these conversations, Florida State will be looking to make some moves here in the near future. I got more thoughts on this in a second, but if you haven't yet subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel, we'd love to have you a part of this. Also, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JD Piquel to keep up with every single thing that we're doing here. Now, why is it impossible? Why does Florida State's athletic director use the words, it's impossible for Florida State to stay how they are right now, to keep the status quo of what's going on right now? Because you look at that number, $42 million, it's not impossible for Florida State in the sense of you can't keep the lights on. Like, Florida State can continue to exist just fine with $42 million a year. Now, here's the issue. Here's what we got to focus on. It's impossible in relation to the expectations that you have at Florida State. And from a college football perspective, you expect to compete and to win national titles. Okay? So if you want to compete on a national level and you want to win national titles, what do you need? You need resources, finances that are on par with who you're competing with. The resources allow you a better opportunity. It doesn't ensure, but it allows you the opportunity at least to create more of a monster or a better monster of a program. Okay? And you look at the other teams, and we'll just focus on the recruiting. We'll just focus on recruiting spending because that seems to be the most public number and just the most evident area of college football in terms of equipping your program, all right? It's about talent acquisition, right? The teams that are spending the most on recruiting, 4 out of those top 5 are in the SEC. You know who number 1 is? The Georgia Bulldogs, who are now back-to-back national champions. So finances equal the opportunity to ensure that your team has everything it needs and then some to succeed. And for Florida State, they have the same expectations as other teams, other universities that have national aspirations as well. And you're going toe-to-toe with Georgia to try and win national titles, okay? Obviously, I'm not saying Florida State and Georgia are in the same conference for now, but that's the reality. You want to be the best, you want to compete with the best, you have to finance with the best. You have to have the resources that are the best. And so we're not okay with just bringing in $42 million a year because that handicaps us as a university. It handicaps us as an athletics program. We need to have what we need to compete at the highest level. And that's the reality for Florida State. So what's next? What happens next? In short, change. And I don't have all the legalities of it worked out. I don't have all the dollars and cents of it worked out. But from a broad strokes perspective, I very much so believe that Florida State will be in a new conference in the not too distant future. Why? Because if Florida State were to somehow get more money out of the ACC, you know what would have to happen? Other members of the ACC would have to be okay with taking a smaller portion of the pie. You think that's going to happen? You think NC State, Miami is just going to say, you know what? Yeah, we want to keep Florida State around. We'll take a pay cut. No, I do not believe that is going to ever be the case within the ACC. You want to know another reason why? Because Florida State, like we just said, they demand excellence. They demand national competitive excellence. In order to do that, in order to have that, they have to have the finances. And it's not coming from the ACC anytime soon. In my view of things, the SEC and the Big Ten continue to trend towards super conferences. You slap an SEC sticker on the back of that Florida State helmet, the recruiting prowess continues to grow. Exciting things going on at Florida State right now internally. They refuse to have that capped by being in the ACC. So we'll see what happens here in the near future. But again, I believe wholeheartedly that the winds of change are blowing in Tallahassee. So how about this? Comment below. Do you want to see Florida State in the SEC or in the Big Ten? Because based on the dollars and cents of this thing, those are the two schools that are the leaders in the clubhouse in terms of revenue generated. And those are the two conferences, rather, that are going to, in my opinion, be on the cutting edge of the super conference era. So let us know, those two conferences, again, generating the most revenue, which one do you want to see Florida State potentially join if they were to leave the ACC? This has been The Hard Count. Nick, Break, Lift, and Heavy. This is your show. Make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed and follow me on the socials at JD Piquel, again, on Twitter as well as on Instagram. Appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.